Hello, my fellow readers. This is iDarkSymphony777 with another fanfiction review. As always, link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story, and finally, listen to my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that, as well as make sure to read the story before watching this video. So, the video we're doing today is Forged Destiny. Oh boy, this is I can't really describe it anyway, but a colossal disappointment. I don't know who wrote this one. It has to be some kind of newbie. Kower all around. What the? I already knew. Yes, the story was written by Kower all around, and I'm just baffled at this story. I'm not even gonna. Just want to take a second to just realize it's because now I have to go remember all the shit that happened and everything that went wrong with this story. I get it. Every single author, no matter how tenured, no matter how long they've been writing, always have a bad day. Even Stephen King, the literal greatest author of all time, has written some stinkers. It happens. It happens to everyone. This is no exception. Still not going to stop me from saying this is probably one of the worst fan fictions I have ever read, and I freaking hate the person who suggested me the story. This is just so painful to read. And oh my god. It was so... What went wrong? Simple. What didn't go wrong? Oh god. Oh god. Oh, it's all coming back to me. It's all coming back to me. Oh, I've had a busy couple weeks dealing with like breaking down and stuff like that. But yeah, this story. But let's get into it. So, what is the plot? Well, the plot is your typical John wants to be a hero again. Because like the third time he's writing the exact same main character, John wanting to become a hero, so he goes to and then Professor Archie has a teacher because of Roman, and then not this time Faith. He's already kind of he's already kind of repeated his life so many times. He just wanted to take a break, and he kind of got forced to go to Beacon instead of wanting to go to Beacon. And this one, he just wants to be a hero. Is there any? Sorry. Well, he goes to Beacon, but this world is completely different from the traditional RWBY world. For one thing, this is like a fantasy world. Second, this is an RPG world where the RPG mechanics don't matter most of the time, if not almost all the time. That is the first problem with the story. Despite the story having RPG mechanics, none of the RPG mechanics really matter. You have passives, you have stats, you have skills, you have a class system, like a class. They have like a caste system, which is like the main overarching plot thread of the story with John's character as well as Blake's character, being the fact that they have to deal with prejudice for what's written above their head, basically, in this world. They have the class, and they have their name, and still, honestly, if you could literally just get rid of the RPG elements and it'd just be the exact same story. That's how little the RPG elements care. The only parts that care are the name, not the name, the class, and John's resilience stat, which is like a dump stat, and then it was revealed that it resists charisma, and it's so weirdly executed because here's the first issue, and I know I don't want to spoil this, but I gotta actually tell you how bad this story is, because trust me when I say the story is bad. their skills and passives, but the author doesn't bring them up all the time. In fact, he's openly admitted that he just didn't use the skills because he was just too lazy not to use them, and just said only really put him in because he apparently kept getting reminded by the fans, like, hey, this is an RPG world. Why aren't you using the RPG elements? And he had to keep shoving them in there, which is the first big problem with the story. Second big problem. I'm actually not going to spoil this, but the main plot thread of this entire story, and this is over 1,000,000-word story, is John wanting to prove that, well, there's four classes. There is the labor class, or the NPC class, which is what John's made of. There is the soldier class, which is like the rank and file. There's the hero class, who are basically supposed to be neutral arbiters meant to protect people from the Grim, even during times of war. So it's like if a battle happens, they fight, negativity happens, and then they have to actually step back when Grim show up, so that way the heroes can do their job, kill them, and then they just go, and then the soldiers go back to fighting. And then there's the noble class, who's in charge of everything, who's in charge of stuff. This would have been a neat story because, again, it's just a simple caste system story. It usually always ends the same way, with the main character fixing the caste and showing how bad it is. There's a specific plot point in the climax of like the first half of the story that just goes, yeah, about that caste system. We're gonna throw it out. We're just gonna take it and just throw it in the trash. Which leaves the question: why were you doing a caste system if the author was literally gonna get rid of it halfway through the story, and then just not care about the consistency of that specific plot thread? It boggles the mind how badly he messed it up. I mean, we're not even done with like what's wrong when it comes to the plot. There's a specific romance thread where the author wanted to hook him up with RWBY, and I'm not really spoiling this because technically he mentions this in the very first author's note of the very first chapter. So all you really have to do is literally just read the first couple sentences, and he'll make it and can basically tell you point blank. It's like, oh, it's gonna be John and RWBY. I don't have to spoil that because it's literally the first thing you're told about the story, John RWBY. Then, partway through, he has John hook up with Blake. Okay, that's fine. If you're gonna do some kind of weird love triangle thing between John, RWBY, and Blake, and then he openly admits that that the story was now going to be John Blake, which made me confused. Like, why didn't you get rid of the RWBY thing at the beginning of the story if you're going to switch it to John Blake? And then several chapters later, like near the end of the first half of the story, he basically, instead of doing the story like he wanted to do, and I will bring this back up because I actually want to go more into detail about this near the end. He gets threats. He gets like a lot of complaints from the shippers. Oh boy, the shippers, who basically tell him to make it RWBY and John because he promised that. And now you're going Blake and John, and now I hate you and stuff like that. And so he basically is like, all right, I'm gonna do it. And then I read that, it's like my brain shuts off, and I'm just wondering why, just why? Why would you do a relation? Why you mention a relationship at the beginning of the story, then change tactics without changing the first part, and then kowtowing to shippers because they didn't like your choice? Oh no, we're not done. And then he decides to backtrack on that choice by doing a poll that between, do you want John and RWBY or John and Blake, and then John Ruby wins, and then he still backs out of that because while he marries Ruby political wedding, he technically still in a relationship with Blake, and it's just a fucking mess. Why? Just why? Why do you need to overcomplicate things? Like, if you just wanted to be John and Blake, that actually would have helped with the main theme of shedding the cast, because a big part of Blake's story is the fact that she's an assassin, and therefore a lot of people don't trust her. How hard would it have been to just simply have John hang out with Blake in public, people like, aha, and just do lovey-dovey things to get with other, so that way people can say, hey, Blake's not bad, you can stop with this prejudice and this crappy cast that's very obviously corrupt. And it's like, nah, yeah. And we're still not done with the problem of the plot. The plot line is inconsistent. I'm just gonna leave it at that. It's very inconsistent. Salem is completely mishandled. Honestly, I just want to off track here saying that I like the idea of Salem being like an eldritch, sort of cosmic horror in the story, because that's what she is presented as in the story. While in Canon Ruby, she's just there. She's just there. It really brings up more. She just kind of has this whole vibe around her. It's like, no, is Salem cosmic horror? No, she's just some lady angry at her ex. So you're saying the bad guy is a bitter ex? Yes. And so she became immortal? Yes. The revenge on the ex? Yes. That makes absolutely bloody no sense. And it's like, too bad, here's some waifus. Here is Cinder. Stare at her hair. Like, I don't like that, Cinder. Here's Neo. Oh, I like that, Neo. Neo's Neo. I don't know where I was going with that. Let's just continue on. So, the plot basically boils down to John becoming a hero, going to Beacon, meeting Team Ruby and Team Juniper, and then just going on adventures to try and stop Salem. At the end, it's just, there's more I want to say, but I kind of dragged on the story too much. And it's better that you just kind of read this one for yourself when it comes to the plot. Hey, don't tell me how I said. Characters. Problem number 10. Who knows how many problems. All the characters are inconsistent. Yeah. All the characters not named John and Blake are flat. Ruby, kind of. However, Ruby's is the main proprietor of being inconsistent. Well, Ruby, John, and Blake. And even then, Ruby doesn't get character development until book 6. About halfway through the story does Ruby actually get character development. Do you know when book 6 starts? Book 6 starts in chapter 80. Ruby doesn't get character development. She's been there since the beginning. She doesn't get any character development until chapter 86. More than halfway through the fucking story. That makes no sense. And even then, Ren doesn't get character development. Weiss doesn't get character development, except for like 1 or 2 moments in book 2. Pierre doesn't get character development. Norin doesn't get character development. Yang doesn't get character development. And that's it. Blake and John are the only characters to get character development from the beginning to the end, and it's so inconsistent. They have the romance, which the author forcibly breaks them up in the most over-the-top forced way imaginable. Like, they don't even try to hide. The author doesn't even try to hide it. It's like, I'm literally breaking this up to appease the shippers. Like, he doesn't even hide it. Like, Like, I shit you not. When he mentions the whole him breaking up Blake and John, it's not. He doesn't even mention it in the story. He mentioned it in the beginning of an author, so I can literally. You know what? Where is it? Where is it? I will literally show you. I'm literally gonna show you. Where is it? Yeah, here it is. Chapter 90. Like, I don't do this often, but I have to show you just how badly he bungled this relationship. Like, this is literally the author's note. Like, the story was initially planned as a Lancaster, but that was back before any of the how was planned. I basically just said to the beta wrestler, yeah, I think this will be good. However, between 4 and 8, he decided that a Blake John pairing worked better. That's the actual author of chapter 90. Now you have a sense of scale. How fucked up this story is if you read that. You can literally just pause it because I didn't even... Because just why would you do that? Again, I'm going to mention that at the end because it deserves mention. John's character is very inconsistent. He basically goes like, I want to be I want to be a hero, to having a pity party, to having another pity party, to having being a hero, pity party, and the worst ways possible. And it's like the author doesn't really have a direction for him. And it's even worse with Blake. At least with John, you kind of have a sense of what he's trying to do with John. But with Blake, you don't know you really don't know what her character is at any point in the story. Okay, she's an assassin. She doesn't like the fact that she's being prejudiced against for being an assassin because people don't trust assassins. And she acts like a tsundere. What? 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 I'm confused. And then Blake gets like very, very helpful, and it's just comes out of nowhere. And then there's a whole thing with her killing her mom. And then there's a whole point where she lived on an island that was basically like a pirate thing. And then there's like there's a whole thing with Raven, and then there's like Summer and her and Blake refused not telling it, not to mention being bored. There's so much wrong with Blake. It's kind of the same with Ruby, but not on a bigger scale. At least I gotta say that out of the 3 characters, Ruby's probably weirdly the most consistent, despite only getting character development halfway through. Which still brings the fact that it took her halfway through the story to get character development. Yeah. And then you have Salem, Rowan Salem. Raven, another thing the author butchers, because the author spends over 100 chapters building up Raven as the villain, only to get curved some by Salem. Which kind of begs the question, it's like, why have Raven as the villain if you're literally, if Salem was more presented as, this is the main problem with Salem. Throughout the entire story, she was more literally used as a cosmic horror MacGuffin. So basically how Salem works is she would show up, basically despair would happen, she'd show up, grant a wish, twist a wish to kill the person, and then leave. And then get like miffed over the simple fact that 1, people didn't thank her for granting the wish, and 2, getting kind of tired of being wished for. However, that's completely inconsistent because eventually she's revealed that she granted a wish to John, which makes no sense because the implication that she wasn't wished on at the time, she wasn't summoned. And then it gets even worse when she starts whispering in Cinder's ear, trying to make a wish, but Cinder's like, no, I'm not making a wish. And it's just, what is the whole point of establishing these rules for Salem if you're not going to follow them? And then I realized the author is literally writing like 5 different stories at the same time, where he should have just been focusing on this story and making sure this story worked fine. Oh boy. Oh boy. Grammars. There's actually a lot of grammar. There's grammar errors scattered across the story. I'm not even going to bother telling you where they are because just, the story is just so long. It's not even worth it. Pacing. The story's in first person. Alright. Alright, first person, fine. However, it's really the most awkward first person you could think of because the author clearly did not have any experience writing first person, and thus half the time it strangely looked like he kept trying to go into third person but kept pulling back to keep it in first person. And then like the end of book 6 where we got like third person, bully out of nowhere. It's like, why? Just why? I don't know. Which kind of just begged the question. It's like, if you wanted to grow your characters and explore the world more, why didn't you just switch between third person point of views with all the other characters and wait until chapter 90 something to get character to switch point of views? It's like, it's nearly 100 chapters worth of first person just randomly slap a third person scene on the story. It comes off again as very forced. It's forced, and it would have been fine if maybe it's like, okay, maybe you have a sense of skill that really, really needed it to stop being first person, or at least explore more first person. But no, it's still mostly first person, and it's still very forced first person because again, you could tell the author is not experienced in writing in that type of way. It's, you can immediately tell if you read first person enough and then you read this, you can immediately tell that this guy has zero experience writing that type of format. Pacing. Okay, I will at least give the story credit with the pacing. It's paced perfectly. It's very slow tempo, but as it hits the 2 climaxes at the first half and the second half, it does speed up astronomically, as well as the mini climaxes in, of course, each book, because each book is like a mini climax. The only problem this happens in is book 8, because it turned out the author wanted to, it was originally supposed to be 10 books. However, people complained that book 7 was going too slow, and because book 7 had like an entire thing with like John dealing with politics and having to get used to being a public figure, and they just randomly cut that short, introduced a different plot with like level addiction, which never introduced before. And it's really weird how it was implemented, and then the author's like, oh, I only did it to appease the fans, and then kind of slapped like a very weak ending of that book to really at least try and in that first half. And then again, it's so weird, but other than that, it's actually paced beautifully. It's a small compliment I can give to the story, but I can't really say anything else. Would I recommend it? No, I can't. There's so much wrong with it that I fathomably can't. Like, there's a limit to how bad you can make a story before it becomes really super astronomically bad. And this story was just so, it was a catastrophe. I want to go into more depth, but it's like, no. Oh, just talking about it hurt. I will say this. Spoiler for this. My favorite part is actually the final battle with Salem. I actually do like that final battle with Salem. It's actually pretty cool. Not the best multi-chapter fight. That would be Journey Through Light and Darkness, Part 4, with the whole battle between the Dark Magician Girl and Dark Magician Chaos and a guy named Zalaloth. That's actually a really... That story is actually not uploaded anymore in fanfiction. Go watch that review for that, for context on that. But yeah, my only complaint of the battle with Salem is the fact it kind of got repetitive. Salem didn't really do anything different, and I do like the final image of, instead of John being the one to kill Salem, it's Ruby being the one to kill Salem, to kind of tie in the what's left of her character arc in that final moment with her and Salem facing off in a forest full of sights, because Ruby was actually the only one who could actually do damage on Salem, because she was fast enough to be able to hit him. Again, like I said earlier, the only character whose stats mattered in this story was Ruby. None of the other characters with the stats really matter. None of it mattered. And I have a feeling I probably was contradictory myself, and probably didn't mention the whole stat thing only mattering to Ruby. That would be par for this story. What would I change? Get rid of the art. A cop out would probably just be get rid of the RPG elements. Just make it a traditional medieval fantasy. And just get rid of all the get rid of all the stat stuff. Like it's a cop out, but there's so much that's wrong with the story. I don't want to spend any more time attempting to fix story. Third person medieval fantasy. Make Salem just just a cosmic horror figure. Like, have her only really matter in like specific points to kind of drop some bombshells of lore when she shows up, but never really being the main villain. Have it be Raven. And also, John fix it, get rid of the caste system. That's fine. There's just so much wrong with the story that I really don't know where to start. But before I go to closing arguments, I do want to mention one thing. And that was what I mentioned earlier with Koer succeeding to his audience. Never, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart, never do that. This is your story. As an author, the first person you should be writing to entertain is yourself. You shouldn't be writing a story. No, let me word that differently. Your fan shouldn't be the one to dictate what you should write, unless it's specifically a sort of like a couple of total drama fan fictions that relied on audience participation, but those all sucked. Yeah, spoilers, those sucked. Don't, because it's one thing when you have one single voice talking to yourself, like, here's how I want things. It's another thing when you have dozens upon dozens of voices all telling you, here's how you should write this story to appease me. Because then you have a bunch of contradictory voices that don't really know how to make up your mind. It doesn't make any sense. Like, think about actual RWBY. That has actually happened in actual RWBY. They had to actually specifically hint at Bumblebee because the shippers got mad and threatened the cast. I'm not joking, actually happened to make Bumblebee canon. You don't do that. No one should do it because you're the one telling the story that you want to be told. So don't let anyone else, not even me. Like, when I make those suggestions at the end of each fanfiction review, you don't have to take it. You don't have to take that advice. I'm actually okay. I would actually prefer you don't take that advice because it shows that you're willing to stick to your guns. Now, if you want to take the advice, that's fine. I try very much to try and limit how much I would change to at least try and not rewrite the story, which is what happened here. The author had to rewrite the story specific parts and storylines because his fans were committing hose mad. Okay, we don't want the John Blake because you mentioned Ruby and John without deleting that mention. Like, okay, I'll completely change the dynamic and change the story and the characters. That way they break up so you can try and throw so I can make them happy. Like, you don't do that. Anyone who writes stories, anyone who writes literature, anyone who tells any kind of story, even like anyone who paints, don't tell them how to do that for you. Because at the end of the day, it's their story. They tell it how they want to do it. And honestly, while you should complain, you should also respect the author for making the decisions that they've made. Sure, you may not like them, but at least respect the decisions. I don't really have anything else to say about this story. I just want the story to be done. Like, why? So I'll end it here. This has been Dark Symphony 777 and cut.